The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Hi everybody and welcome back to the Crypto Night Show. Just had a few little technical hiccups there, unfortunately, but that's just the way it goes sometimes live on the internet. So this show is going to be pretty epic because I've got Nick Hellman, of course, and it can't do much better than that, can you? From Crypto Paradise and Surf Token. So it's going to be pretty exciting to hear from him. Now we're going to bring him up on the stage, of course, and get any questions that you have, any comments you want to make in the chat there as well. Obviously, he's been doing some great stuff around technical analysis, fundamental analysis in crypto, as well as building out a pretty incredible ecosystem with a Crypto Paradise and Surf Token. So it's going to be a lot of fun to interview him very, very soon. So hope you guys enjoy it. Don't forget, of course, to share the link around. I'm going to paste that in the chat there as well. So definitely get out there and post this out on X as much as you can. Because it's going to be a great, great show with a pretty big personality. So I hope you guys enjoy it. So without any further ado, let's pick Nick up on the line here, and we're going to have to add him into the studio. There he is. Well, welcome, Nick.
How's it going, everybody? Good to be here. Thanks for having me on the show, and excited to talk about PulseChain, Crypto Paradise, the journey, and of course the Surf Token launch that just occurred 3 weeks ago.
Awesome. So, Nick, for those that are not too familiar with you, are you able to give us a bit of a background about yourself and how it all began?
Yeah, so I started in crypto in 2016, went public in crypto in 2017, helped co-found LearnCrypto.io, which is a technical analysis educational platform. We still have a private group to this day, cycle after cycle, at patreon.com/learncrypto. You get 24/7 access to myself and Todd Butterfield, who happens to own Wyckoff Stock Market Institute. So if you've ever seen Wyckoff markings on Twitter, my co-founder is the one who actually owns all of those indicators that you see on Twitter and TradingView and everything else. So pretty good space to be. Since then, I've worked with plenty of individuals in the space, found myself with Crypto Paradise, with Crypto Amaru, Nate, and a handful of other developers, social media personalities. And we wanted to do something a little different. And now Crypto Paradise is a marketing agency. It's also a investment syndicate. We acquired the decentralized incubator, which is a launch pad from the last 2 cycles. So that's another utility for Surf we'll get into. And been here a long time, done a lot of things early to BSC, but now I think PulseChain is the opportunity. And we're trying to get involved, and we're trying to onboard our followers that are on BSC, Ethereum, and Solana, trying to onboard them here to PulseChain. And I think the short-term success of Surf so far shows that we are in fact doing that, kind of leapfrogging a lot of other projects that have launched on PulseChain, because we are bringing in new capital and new users and new faces.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think I mentioned it either yesterday or the day before about that, that you guys are like bringing on some pretty new big crowd to PulseChain, which is just, I called it an early bull market sign. How about that? But it is really exciting to have you guys come over. And one thing I mentioned to you before the live stream started was the professionalism that you guys are bringing, which I love personally. And so I'm very excited about that. Now, with PulseChain, you come into PulseChain, what is the catalyst that brought your team to PulseChain? Because I think that's pretty...
So Crypto Paradise does have a DAO. If you want to be in the DAO, it's 200,000 Surf to get in the DAO. But before Surf Token existed, we had this governance committee, is what we called it, because there was no token. Yeah. And we put a poll up, hey guys, we think we're going to launch a token, and we want to implement a lot of utilities based on the Web 2 business of Crypto Paradise, based on the incubator that we have, and some other cool token utilities and token tricks we picked up along the way. And, the poll was going off. BSC was winning because a lot of us made it big on BSC. We were early to that. Base with the speculation and the Coinbase ties, and Ethereum because it's kind of the king. But, I put my face up there. I put my thoughts out there saying, PulseChain, very low valuations, a lot of upside, although there is risk. But I saw Richard Hart beating the SEC. I predicted that was going to happen. Yeah. We also saw success of the liquidity web over on PulseChain as well with tax tokens. So what's unique about PulseChain is effectively you have 5 blue chips. And this is one of the only networks that has that. On BSC, you have BNB. Ethereum, you have ETH. Solana, you have Sol. And if you create a token on any of those networks, you create a pair with Solana and maybe a pair with a stablecoin. But on PulseChain, you have the opportunity to get with 5 blue chips, and then you can let arbitrage bots kind of trade off of all those. Today Ink's hot, tomorrow Hex is hot, whatever it may be. And that allows you to harvest taxes that can go and be injected back into the token. So after I did that, votes slowly started switching. And what's unique here is, cool, PulseChain was picked. We're going to launch Surf on PulseChain. 60 to 70% of our GC members never once interacted with and never once used the PulseChain network. They didn't even have it in their MetaMask wallet. So by launching Surf there, we actually effectively forced their hand. Hey, if you want to buy more Surf, you have to add PulseChain network. Hey, we're going to give you guys an airdrop of Surf. All of our GC members got 200,000 Surf for free. Now that's a $7,000 airdrop. And they got over here and they're holding their tokens. And now they're on the chain. Now they have economic power on the chain. And whatever they decide to do with it, they can do with it. So, short answer, we chose it because we believe in the upside. I believe Richard Hart's a Chad. We saw the opportunity with the liquidity web, and we wanted to onboard people to a new chain. We got where we are by being early. When we got on BSC, half the people hated CZ, half the people loved him. That reminds me a lot of Richard Hart, doesn't it? So that's the same vibes I'm getting. That's the opportunity I'm seeing this cycle, and we're rolling the dice here with PulseChain, and we'll see what happens.
Hey, I think that's fantastic, and I'd agree with it all, of course, being a PulseChain influencer. But one of the things that we see on PulseChain also, in addition to the fundamentals you just talked about, which I thought you outlaid really well, is we've got a kind of a PulseChain influencer army, right? Which is, I think, relatively unique. There's a lot of Bitcoin influencers out there and stuff like that, but often they're doing margin trading, all this stuff. Whereas on PulseChain, everyone's all talking about DeFi essentially, right? And so how do you feel about all those potential influences out there and how that might impact the market, like in terms of adoption as well?
Yeah, and I think that is what has created the culture of PulseChain that was, inviting. Is there's a bunch of individuals like yourself, 100-something streamers, all talking about PulseChain, and that's what gives it the culture. And once you get in, that's why you latch in and see the upside opportunity. Now what we need to focus on is, hey, how do we get these OG influencers, KOLs, product developers to start wanting to develop on PulseChain? And obviously it becomes a lot easier when PulseChain has green candles, but it also becomes easier with word of mouth or people who are working outside of that multi-network ecosystem and coming to PulseChain like ourselves and Crypto Paradise. And we're only, one small channel, but we have contacts with, BitShaman, he's big on Solana, Crypto King is big on BSC, and we're trying to get them to dip their toes in here. We're even offering them like, hey, if you buy Surf, we'll give you some OTC to force you to get on PulseChain.
Nice.
Because once they have economic power here, that's when they will start talking about PulseChain to their community, because otherwise there's no point. They can't pump their bags. They have no economic power on the network. So we need to get them some capital over here, get them some green candles, and then get them to start preaching to their degenerates that are on different networks. So I love the culture on PulseChain, but we need to get out of the echo chamber and keep growing that echo chamber and let the culture speak for itself once people get across that bridge.
Yeah, so on that, I think I've got two good questions. And one is you obviously got, because you're fairly decent size, and you've been around for a long time. You must have a lot of network into some of these, other ecosystems and big players on the field, as it were. So are you finding that you're slowly having more conversations with them about PulseChain and the opportunities on the back of Surf?
So as they reply, if they let me, I do post on my feed. So we've gotten a plethora of individuals asking for help on how to get over the bridge in preparation for the Surf launch. We got other individuals saying they're working on doing some content around Surf and PulseChain, and they're trying to get over the bridge. And then some other ones who are like, yeah, I'm going to get to it. I'll let you know once I get on PulseChain, we'll get some Surf OTC going or whatever it may be, and we're going to get ingratiated with the network. So I'm just continuing to preach like, hey guys, people, sacrificed this 2-3 years ago, and you're able to get in at a 50% discount to those OGs. That is a very rare thing to happen in crypto. And it's really about market timing and dynamic, because obviously you had the SEC case, still have Interpol, but Ethereum's been such a lagger. And I'm just like, look, the bull market is about to begin, right? You think the alt season is about to begin? Well, here's a network that has an absolute Chad behind it, billions of dollars of economic power, and it's really untouched, prairies, untouched farmland that is looking for builders, that is looking for KOLs, influencers, new investors, and new opportunities. And what's interesting is a lot of the projects that are being launched on PulseChain right now are new DeFi plays where you're getting in at 40K market cap, 100K, 1 million market cap. This is the same thing that happened on other networks, and it's almost like a flashback to me from that cycle with BSC. And that's why I'm so excited for, this opportunity. And I think people are going to continue to slowly make their way over. Of course, we need PulseChain itself to give them the nudge and show us some green candle and some upside. and that makes it a lot easier.
It came up against 4,200, didn't it? And now it's trying to hold on to 35. You were saying before the live.
Yeah. I see a cup and handle here. I've been sharing it. When we broke out, it's like I said, hey, we usually retest and then we can continue higher. I said we really need to hold 35.85. Right now we're at 35.79, but we do have a green candle on the daily here. So potentially and hopefully we have a bounce here, whether that's just general market dynamics, other technicians like myself or Richard Hart stepping in, whatever the case. And this is really a critical level to kind of keep that self-fulfilling prophecy of the bullish cup and handle going. And then the next target would be like 55, which is like 55% higher here. And if you get a 55% rally on PLS, that means you're going to get a 60 to 65% rally on the other blue chips. And some of the good altcoins on PulseChain are going to do 1x, 2x, 3x with that kind of movement from PulseChain. So that also makes my job of onboarding a lot easier as well.
It does,
people like the green candles.
Yeah. Well, talking about that, so you're slowly spreading the word outside now that you've come over, and so a lot of other people are going to hear about it. Obviously, we know people like Ivan on Tech and others have know Richard Hart, follow Rich, PulseChain, but of course, you're also hitting up more influencers on PulseChain, so you're building out that side of your project and team, and you also got Surf matched up with several other top tier tokens like Top Hat from Crypto Coffee. Can you tell us a little bit more about that sort of expansion onto PulseChain?
Yeah, so I have done one live show with Crypto Coffee where obviously we're going to collaborate some more, but we're looking for good projects to pair with Surf, because the way liquidity bonding works is if you're with those projects, you can generate either cross collaborations between communities, you can generate volume that produces fees, which we'll talk about the token here in a little bit and how that works. But also, Crypto Coffee seems like he is very benevolent with that token, and he's pretty much like, look, I have a lot of supply, we're not selling it. And when we were on a conversation, he was talking about all these utilities he's coming up with that are going to buy and burn the token or buy and add LP to the token, whatever it may be. So after hearing that, I'm like, wow, Top Hat could be, a big meme coin player on PulseChain this cycle. And if it's going to do a 10x, 100x, 1000x, we want to pair Surf with that so we can ride that wave as well. 100%. He's a big name in PulseChain. He's willing to collaborate. He understands what we're trying to do. We understand what he's trying to do. And that relationship's just getting started.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. So that's Top Hat, but you're also pairing up with a few other teams, are you not? That are quite large.
Yeah, so we were launched with X Protocol, which is CoachX, SPY, Crypto Kong, and their X tokens. So we have an LP there. Yeah. We have a collaboration with Teddy Takeover. They've hopped on some of our spaces, retweeted our content. So we have an LP with Teddy, not with Bear yet, but I will say the DAO is voting to also create an LP with Bear and let those two kind of fight it out.
Yeah, sure.
I know it's a little bit of a battle on chain, but we can hopefully make it fun and take advantage of the volatility of both assets to harvest some fees off of that.
So with Teddy Takeover, you got big cheerleaders like Moon King, which is probably one of the top 5 influencers on PulseChain in terms of size, and of course he's a pretty funny guy as well. Yeah. Do you have you any connections with him? Have you been talking with him at all about that?
We talk in the background. B Roots and Ian, they're aware of the projects. They're waiting to see. So once we get to the token tax system, they are really big on PTGC, and in their mind, they're like, okay, well, I got a token tax exposure here with PTGC. We'll wait and see what kind of happens with Surf. We'll see if you guys solidify yourself or differentiate yourself before we get involved. They got to protect their reputation and their community.
Yep.
I understand that completely. Also know the devs of PTGC. They've kind of said the same thing. I still go on PTGC spaces every Saturday as a speaker. So tune into that if you want to learn more about that. So, that's something that I think comes a little later once you prove ourselves, differentiate different utilities, and prove to be benevolent to that ecosystem rather than a vampire attack or extractor from that ecosystem.
Oh, fantastic. So the other thing is you guys not only are doing the Surf token and coming onto PulseChain, you're making all those wonderful growth moves. You also got a lot of other products, right? You got all your website and was it the Wickoff? I think it was. A lot of other stuff you guys are doing. So you got a few things going. You got quite a decent sized team as well. And so are you able to talk a little bit about some of those team members that are doing a few of the others again? I know you just sort of covered it briefly at the beginning.
Yeah, so under Crypto Paradise, there's really 3 faces or entertainers. That is myself, Crypto Amaru, and Web3 Nate. So those are the faces you'll see if you tune in and hit the follow button on Crypto Paradise to get our alpha. Behind the scenes, we have a social media manager. We have a finance guy, and we have 2 internal devs as well that help us create products.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
And also audited the code before we launched Surf. The nice thing about working and collaborating with X Protocol and the X token is that means we also get the brain of Coach X. We get the dev suite of Spy. We get Crypto Kong and some of those guys. And then as far as Learn Crypto, it's myself and Todd Butterfield. His wife, Carrie, kind of runs all the back office stuff. So there is teams behind these things. These are real businesses. They produce revenue. And the interesting thing is we're actually utilizing some of the revenue and always keeping in mind the Surf token and passing on the utilities of the Surf token. That's kind of the plan because we understand that a successful token, it keeps the community happy. They're getting the reflection rewards, prices going up and to the right. It also makes it much easier for us to get advisory work and clients because it's like, look, you want to trust us with advising you on how to launch on PulseChain or what to do next with your token. Well, look at what other projects we work with. And now we have our own projects and say, hey, look what we did with this project. And we're going to get you the same connections with CoinGecko, CMC, InvestX. We have all the centralized exchange connections. We have all that. And what's interesting is the one roadblock we have run into is some of our connections, centralized exchanges, Collab Land, all these other development suites don't have integration with PulseChain yet. So we do talk to them about that. Our hands are kind of tied. When they, integrate PulseChain, Surf is going to be able to slide right into these things right after PLS, right after these blue chips because we have relationships there. But they're not going to add the network just for a $3 million market cap Surf token.
Yeah, sure. Now, you guys are so well organized and you got such a fantastic, I think, professional image, and your branding's fantastic. I mean, it is next level. You guys must have a roadmap ahead. So you able to tease us a little bit about what some of the things you might be having?
If anybody wants to learn more, you can go to cryptoparadise.net, of course. Essentially, we have Crypto Paradise as the marketing company, and we also have the Launchpad. Right now, pre-sales aren't very hot, but the Launchpad side of things also gets you exposure to other opportunities within the crypto sphere. Right now, we have Frontier Fund, which is kind of a hedge fund, a conglomerate of funds, and they're producing like 4% daily returns on their day trading. So a lot of people in the DAO have put in $10,000 or more into that. And the way it works, it's like a rolling investment. So every 30 days, you're able to get your profits out. And every 60 days, you can compound or take out your initial investment. So that's just an example of an opportunity.
Incredible.
And to get into these opportunities, essentially, you just got to be in the Surf DAO. 200,000 Surf or more gets you DAO rights, so you vote on the future of Surf, how we use DAO funds. But it also gets you pre-sale opportunities. It gets you those investment opportunities, and you'll get alpha and gems. Like if we're about to do a marketing campaign for a project, who's going to find out first? The DAO is. And you can speculate on it if you want to take a trade, do what you want. Our most recent example of this, it's a project called Fuck 9 to 5 on Solana. The same, get away from the 9 to 5 vibe. We got involved with them at 295K. It's up to 2 million market cap now. And the DAO members got the heads up that, hey, the Paradise Pump is coming. They're doing a marketing campaign. They're working with other KOLs. This is a really good team. And that's a way for us to provide alpha to the big Surf holders.
That's incredible. That's incredible, man. That's such a ton of awesomeness you guys are doing, especially with those yields of the DAO. I love the DAO feature there. So I guess your team puts ideas into the DAO just like anybody else, basically.
So we have our own ideas and we pass it through in there, but really everybody in the DAO is throwing around ideas as well. And we put up polls, and then there's a final vote that goes through, and then those funds get deployed. We just actually had the multi-signature wallet confirm, I think it was $16,000 with the PLS out of the DAO wallet. That is because you can speculate on what the DAO wanted to do. So far, the DAO has wanted to buy back Surf off the open market and pair it with other PLS PulseChain assets to fatten up the liquidity pools. Because the way that liquidity bonding works is we want to get the liquidity pools big because we believe blue chips go up, we go up with them or go higher. But also the bigger our pools can get, the more market maker bots we can attract to those pools to create volume and arbitrage on our different pools. And we have a 5% buy tax, 5% sell tax. So every time that's happening, the DAO is refilling. The Surf token holders are getting reflections. Tokens are being bought back and burned off the open market. We've already burned 2% of total supply in 3 weeks just from the smart contract functions and the volume. So it's really about keeping volume up, because the more volume there is, the machine gets to work. And that's where you have the LP ads, the buybacks and burns, and the reflection rewards for holders.
Fantastic. Now, if you guys have got questions for Nick, get them in the chat as well.
I see. Is that a dog or a meerkat? That's actually my wife's dog. You can't see my two big dogs. They're sick of the little dog. That's a little
There's
puppy.
one in the back. I can see.
Yeah, that's the 4-month-old toy poodle. So that's about as big as it gets. That's my wife's purse dog. I got a German Shepherd over here and like a little Dachshund as well, just staring at her like, "What are you doing down here?" Normally she's upstairs.
Nice. All right, cool. Let's jump ship here and let's go to the other view, and we're gonna pull up. Unfortunately, because we had to reset the live stream, I have to re-add the screen. So let's do that first, and pull it up. Bam! But here's the beautiful website here, Crypto Paradise, looking good. So yeah, I mean, maybe you could navigate us through here a little bit, Nick, and show us around.
Yeah, so if you just click on the surf tab, I think that's a good start so you guys can see more about the token. I know that's probably what you guys want to see. There's the contract address for you. And yes, it is on PulseChain. So essentially, it is a sustainable token ecosystem, like I explained. It's a 5% buy tax, 5% sell tax. Out of that 5%, 0.5% goes to auto buying and burning the surf token. I think it's 1.5% goes to the DAO, which so far all they've done is bought surf and added to LPs.
Okay.
0.5% goes to auto adding LP with surf and PLS. We think that's very important. We want to help pump the network. We think PLS is very undervalued. Another 0.5% goes to surf and X LP. We're working with X protocol. We think X is very undervalued, so we want to tie to that. And then we have 1% going to a no expectation wallet. Okay. And so far, that no expectation wallet has just bought and held surf tokens. But the no expectation wallet will be used probably for Crypto Paradise overhead costs and Crypto Paradise expansions. Because the bigger the business gets, that's the more revenues that can be earned and the more eyes that can be on the surf token, which means more potential buyers of surf, but more potential buyers and bridgers into the PulseChain ecosystem.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty nice balance too. Yeah, that's pretty exciting. Now, you're obviously looking at more partnerships, so I guess more potential opportunities there. I know that there's a project that I've covered recently. It's called Nexion. They're going to be having 10x leverage on there. So it'd be interesting, sort of projects like that. But yeah, it's going to be fun.
That's kind of the Crypto Paradise difference is we're willing to collaborate with really anyone, and we're talking to several people. There's a DeFi platform that we actually did a recorded video with that has not been released yet, but we think there's going to be a surf LP pair on there for people who want to chase yield. We're talking to getting a project to relaunch on PulseChain, and they might have token taxes, and part of that would be some of those token taxes will go towards surf buybacks and burns. And we're advising a project that is planning on launching on PulseChain as well, and you can probably expect that there will be some kind of utility with the surf token within their platform. So that's the thing is when we provide these services or these marketing campaigns, we're thinking of ways to integrate surf. And if we have other projects that we are bringing to PulseChain, getting launched on PulseChain, obviously that's very good for the network. But if they're automatically buyback and burning surf based on revenues or based on transaction taxes, well, that does very well for surf over the long term as well, because their success is then our success. Also, we are offering marketing deals. So we have I told you about Fuck 9 to 5, and part of that deal was, well, hey, if you own a little bit of surf, then we'll give you a discount on the marketing package. So we're incentivizing even projects that are on different networks. That's the Solana project to get into PulseChain to buy and hold surf in order to get discounted rates on services that we provide.
Okay, fantastic. Let's move on to the news site here. You got news as well.
I don't know if that's fully updated, but that just links to our YouTube. But news is going to be a free blog that's going to be out there. We're getting the Medium up and running, so that's going to be more the blog side of thing. Yeah, the team will bring you down there. Those are the faces of Crypto Paradise. That's Web3 Nate. That's Crypto Amaru, and that's myself. Behind the scenes, of course, I talked to you about social media manager, the finance guy, and the two developers.
Yeah, that's pretty fun. I mean, they're fun photos. I like that. And you got case studies as well, I think, on here. The Crypto Paradise.
Yeah, and this kind of goes over the services when it comes to the marketing side of things. This is kind of just a one-pager for projects that take a look, and then we can send them a template and stuff like that.
Okay, cool. You got a mini app as well. What is that?
So that's like a Telegram mini app, almost like the Bonk app. There's some people in there, and we got that developed and built out, doing some giveaways, and we're going to try to use that when retail comes back to continue to onboard more people into Crypto Paradise and do surf token giveaways for interactions, from simple things to like following our channels to more high level things like making it to a retreat or buy a certain amount of surf or whatever it may be. So I'm sure some people are familiar with the Telegram mini apps that have games and such in that. Crypto Paradise does have its own branded mini app in which projects do pay to be on that mini app. And we're going to use it for the benefit of keeping our community interactive, benefiting with surf token buybacks based on the revenue, and the list goes on.
That's fantastic. Honestly, I think, the app could be really, really awesome. The other thing is, with promotions, do you guys actually isolate and do an allowance for marketing and promotions? Do you actually do that? Because obviously that would stand you out as well, I think, relatively speaking, to a lot of projects.
Say that again.
Do you actually allocate like a marketing budget, basically, or promotion?
Yeah, so that no expectation wallet is there,
Yeah.
and we've been in the space for a while. We're doing our best for a token, and I'm sure we'll look at the chart. And those no expectation funds can be used for marketing balances for KOLs or influencers, or our marketing for ads, or whatever we deem is going to be beneficial. Remember, a lot of KOLs and influencers don't really move the needle, or they want to charge an arm and a leg for one tweet.
That's right.
We're trying to cultivate organic growth and want people to get on board that actually want to be here for the long term. So we prefer hey, you have a platform, whether you have 100 followers or 100,000 followers, we have a relationship with you. We think you're benevolent towards surf. You want to actually learn and be a holder. Maybe we can offer you an OTC deal. Go to the market, go buy some, show us that you bought it, and we'll give you some OTC on top for showing support. And let's figure out a way to collaborate with each other and get you onboarded into the Crypto Paradise family.
100%. And I want to go back to a point you just made about big influencers that they'll charge you an arm and a leg, and you might get under delivered as well on promotions. And I think that's important, and that's why here at the Crypto Night Show we've expanded into doing promotions on PulseChain, because we have not just YouTube, but we also got a lot of social media networks that we have access to. And so we're trying to get a professional, ethical level service that's moderately priced so that teams can actually be seen, right? Because you can have the greatest product in the world, but if you're not being seen, then you need to get out there and do that. So I 100% agree on that. So it's really nice to see that sort of echoed back. And you guys are a great example of a team doing good promotion. So it's
it's all it's all about like long-term relationships. One tweet doesn't move the needle. It's just like anything in life. Somebody needs to see something or do something multiple times before it becomes a habit. And these projects need marketing and people to come on board that are there for the long term. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, going to hold the bag. Need to be involved, want to be involved, and have interest in the project. Otherwise, it just looks like hollow shill tweets. And people are starting to be able to see through that. That doesn't move the needle. That doesn't get people excited, and that doesn't get people interested.
Yeah, you've got many tastes. You have to talk like you're talking to your friend rather than you're doing a shill post. Yeah, that's right. All right, so let's get onto the chart because here it is, the surf chart here on PulseChain. Hurrah, hurrah! Welcome. And of course, it's been around for 21 days and 6 hours apparently here on Deck Screener.
Yeah, exactly. Three weeks now.
So give us your thoughts about this, and maybe just refresh the tokenomics, and I'll post it in the chat there as well.
Yeah, I mean, we launched, what we wanted to do was a low fully diluted valuation with a high float. And what that means is we did a fair launch around $11,000 market cap, and we put 72% of the tokens into liquidity. So put them out there in the market. Anybody can get them. An additional 20% of the tokens were used for an airdrop to our OG members. Now, we were strategic with the airdrop. A lot of people waited and didn't buy that first dip because they thought the airdrop was going to come out and this was going to look like an airdrop token and go down into the right.
Sure.
But remember, 200,000 surf or more gets you in the DAO Alpha group. So what do you think we airdrop to those OG members? Exactly 200,000. If they sell any tokens, they're out. And they know the value that we have provided. So if you want to sell at that time, it was like a $500 airdrop and miss out on the alpha, the gems, and the surf upside for the rest of the cycle, then that's fine. But you're going to miss out on that. And what we saw is, that was actually the low. We were doing the airdrop during that low, and nobody really sold. And we've gone, 10x from those levels. So, this is still just an early milestone. I know for PulseChain, once you get into this 2, 3, 4, 5 million, that's, expensive for the degenerate traders. But on the large scheme of things, we're at 3 million market cap. There's still a lot of opportunity, a lot of utilities. Crypto Paradise isn't going anywhere this cycle. And if you believe PulseChain has upside, well, I mean, we're getting very strong liquidity bondings with these projects. At a $2.8 million market cap, just on that PLS pair, we have 166K liquidity. And if you look, we have on PLSX, we got another 65K. X Protocol, we got 30K. And all Hex and Ink and all those, we have 20 or 30K as well. So pretty thick liquidity for a low market cap. And the token tax and the token economics are allowing us to keep fattening up those liquidities for the green candles that we think will happen with PulseChain. And, that surfing coconut is going to ride that wave of green candles.
Yeah, and I'm looking at your volume daily, and you're still, still doing a pretty good volume every day. Obviously, there's variability, but the numbers are looking pretty good relative to liquidity. So, it's ticking along very nicely.
And that's at a very low volume time for PulseChain in general. Obviously, we're at a very critical level here for PulseChain. Volume is very low across the board, and hopefully, with the help of Crypto Paradise, we can get a bounce here and get PulseChain working higher. I think that also comes in with the Ethereum price action. It was looking good last night, slowed down a bit today, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and just to remind, it's a 5% buy tax and a 5% sell tax, correct?
Correct.
And what was I going to say? You've done a web LP with some of the top tokens that are on PulseChain. You're adding more in, like Top Hat and others. So that's going really well. The other thing is that there's actually not that many tokens, right? It's like 100 million, is it? 100 million tokens?
100 million. And if you use DEX tools, you can actually see the circulating supply updating live in real time. Okay. We're down to like 98.04 million. So 1.96% of the supply has already been burnt by the smart contract functions in the first 3 weeks. And that's purely based off volume. Because remember, 0.5% of the transaction tax is used for auto buys and burns. And I don't think it actually shows the burn address on the holder list because it is using the all zeros.
Yes, all zeros.
If you wanted to dig in deeper into,
kind of three main ways, right? You burn, and one of them is the zeros. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool. Sometimes the other way is, of course, that it takes off the max supply, right? Which is some people use that method.
So DEX
you got 134 holders at the moment. So
yeah, so DEX tools, whatever API they use is what we kind of program it because we're used to working with other chains more so than PulseChain. And DEX tools is the one that's kind of updating the circulating supply as we go for those who are interested in the dynamics of buybacks and burns and understands how they create success. That's one of the biggest reasons that BNB has had success is buybacks and burns tied to their exchange revenue and their network utilization. So that has to be a core utility for a lot of the projects to have sustainable growth and create higher floors for its holders.
Okay. It looks like you probably got around 5% in LP pools. Is that right? About that, maybe?
So if you look, that first one is probably the PLS LP, and then all those other contracts are the other liquidity web pools.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
So remember, initially, 72% of the supply was put into LPs. Now the price has gone up, so I'm not sure the exact percentage that's still in the LPs. But almost all the tokens are put in LPs and letting the market do its thing.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, so I think that's kind of cool. Get your questions, guys, into the chat. Don't be shy, as I say. Don't be shy. Now we're going to jump over to come over to your socials here. So you got Crypto Paradise. So you guys have a pretty large following by PulseChain accounts. This would put you at pretty much at the top, I think, just about. But maybe behind Richard Hart. But 136,000 followers. So you guys have been around for quite a while. I mean, it's April 2024, so you guys are growing huge.
So this marketing Crypto Paradise a little over a year now, but remember we did work with it. We had Decentralized Incubator, which has been a multi-cycle launch pad, and then we have Learn Crypto, and then we have my personal accounts and all their personal accounts, and we decided we wanted to build this umbrella company and kind of put all of our protocols and projects under one roof. And it's done very well. And when you have a little bit of money for marketing spend and such, it makes it a little easier to pick up followers. I mean, this obviously has like 3 or 4 times the amount of followers than my personal account, and I've had that for much longer.
Yeah. This is doing pretty good. So you guys can follow this as well. I'll post the link in the chat there for those that want to, become part of the community there. Let me just, what have we got there? Sorry. I'm pulling up some buttons I didn't even know was in the studio.
We do a lot of content with Crypto Paradise, from live shows to spaces to shorts, and always willing to collaborate. So maybe you'll see yourself and the Crypto Night guys over on a Crypto Paradise live show sometime.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, excited. Hashtag. All right. So that is Crypto Paradise. So definitely check it out, guys. And of course, Nick Hellman is also on there as well. So you can give Nick a follow if you want to get more good details out of him. And of course, I'll post that as well. And we'll post this on the socials after the live, pinned to the top of the chats. So you guys that watch it after and the replay gang can check it out as well.
So what's your opinion of PulseChain right now? Like where it's at after the launch? What do you think of, prices, and what do you think of kind of projects that are being launched over on PulseChain? Like what's your opinion?
Well, moving shop here. It was key that we got over 4,200, and we have not got over there yet. So obviously we've got to wait our time a little bit there. And as you pointed out earlier, trying to hold on to 3,500 is pretty key. We're obviously still not in that breakout mode yet for that re-rate on PulseChain. That being said, if we see a God mode candle at any time, don't be surprised, I guess, as well. That being said, that's going to come probably from funds that are not on the deck, so not the Magic Carpet Ride funds. I'm sure you're well aware of, and so that's kind of where we are. But in terms of the market dynamics, I think it's going to be very much driven by Trump administration and the Fed, and so those two are pretty important. And I think the Trump lineup, as I normally break down in my normal daily show, is pretty spectacular. He's got to have a strategy in place by the 4th of July with the big tax bill, right, which is progressing through Senate. And then, of course, may end up going back to Congress as well, to committees and stuff like that. So, but that's going pretty well so far. I think also the trade deals, we're probably going to get lots of big trade deals. Japan, India, South Korea, places like that. So I'm expecting that to come. And that's all in the next sort of 38 days, right? So we hope he's got to have that in by 4th of July. That will usher in his vision along with his third strategy, which is leverage and deregulation, right? Which is the longest play. That's a longer play. That includes crypto too, right? So I think by 4th of July gets that in, the market's going to love all the news flows from that, moving forward. And also, I think there's a lot more pressure on the Fed to get the interest rate down. They're playing, I think, a little bit of a political game here.
Yep.
Because they can say tariffs, but look, the rest of the central banks around the world are lowering their rates, and here's the central bank just holding on, trying to pretend, play little games around the tariff volatility and stuff like that. And so really they should probably have at least gone down to 3.5 on the federal funds rate. So we'll see what happens there. But I think that could also be a trigger for altcoin season too, if you did get that move down from the Federal Reserve. So that's one of the things that may move the altcoin season, and it may move potentially Richard Hart as well, or whoever's running the Magic Carpet Ride, and not from the Magic Carpet Ride funds. Obviously, I think that those probably won't get triggered until they get back to 37.75 on the ETH, and then it's how many ways could you use that, right? You can use it from the income side, the buy side, or you can do an asset play, right? An asset play is a lot smarter. I think we could both agree if you do an asset play on that. So, and it's the same thing that Trump's doing in many ways. He's doing an income play and an asset play, right? And if you do both those together, you're a genius. You look like a genius on the other side, right? And so that's kind of where I feel we are. But in terms of short term, we're just still waiting, biding our times, trying to hold on to this 3,500 on Pulse.
Yeah, and I agree with you a lot on that. And a couple other, things that could be catalysts is on June 1st, the SEC votes whether or not the Ethereum spot ETF can provide that dividend yield, like whether those Ethereum can actually go into a validator. And with Petra, it upgraded from 32 to 2,048 ETH for a validator, which is much more manageable and much lower management fees for these institutions to get more validators, which I think could be a catalyst for what I think is going to be the next narrative, which is the Ethereum strategic reserve. We saw a couple companies announce they're going to do Ethereum strategic reserve rather than a Bitcoin strategic reserve, and that brings in a lot of inflows. On top of that, we know that the SEC case is officially over sometime in June if they don't do an appeal, which I don't think they will. So that would be nice to get off Richard Hart's back, and hopefully around that same time, you get Richard Hart kind of either settling or resolving the Interpol case. Like, hey, look, SEC didn't appeal again. We fully beat them. Now let's settle this tax evasion case either with money, or you're saying it's tax evasion on the OA wallets, which now the SEC says isn't mine. So you can't really, get on my back. And I think when all those things line up, plus the actual bigger macro fundamentals, I think that does provide a big outlet for upside for PulseChain. As we know, PulseChain has a big tie to Ethereum. So if I'm right on the Ethereum narrative switch, if I'm right on the SEC approving that, that's a much easier sell for institutions to be like, hey, Ethereum spot ETF, Ethereum is the next Microsoft, and it pays you a dividend yield comparable to that of holding like a cash investment. So
100%.
I think that's a great investment opportunity and an easy sell for BlackRock, where they can get a lot of fees that way because they'll keep a percentage of that validator reward for themselves.
And I think we may have already seen a little bit of early clues on that with Ethereum's little mini run recently. And so I think that bodes very well for a big move. And build on the back of what you're saying around the ETFs and things like that is that, you've got the Trump associate families, that are not in government this time, interestingly enough, but they're in crypto.
Right.
And they're going large, right? They're going large. So they're bringing all these big capitalists into their mix to do their own, Michael Saylor MSTR setup, right? That's what they say. We want to have at least we want to do another one of those. And now how easy to do that, of course, is because he's got 555,000 Bitcoin. And I don't know I think was at the Bitcoin conference yesterday or something, he got asked about are you guys going to like dox your accounts and prove, what was it, proof of Bitcoin, I think it was, which I thought was pretty hilarious.
He kind of had a wraparound and pretty much said he wasn't going to do it. Now, what's interesting is Jack with Strike, and they're doing the 21 shares. He did a video today saying, hey, we are going to dox all of our wallets. Here's the 4 wallets that we have currently. We're about to add a 5th. We raised $100 million to buy more Bitcoin. So, that's a little jab at Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy, like, we got nothing to hide. Here's all the Bitcoin we have. Here's cash that we're going to use to buy Bitcoin. And you guys can track all those wallets you want in the future. So we'll see what happens.
So where do you lie on that? Where do you think proof of Bitcoin? Where do you think? Is it important?
The whole thing is, if you like, Arkham has already tracked wallets that they're claiming to be Michael Saylor's or MicroStrategy. So the whole point in the belief system is that it's this on-chain, transparent, immutable monetary system, right? So people are going to find it out anyways. Why wouldn't you just be transparent in what your public wallets are? Because people will find them. Plus, it's just your public key. And if you really believe what you're preaching, that it's a reserve and you're going to use it to leverage and create value for your shareholders, and you're not going to sell it, then why not just have it out there and really prove all your buys, and people can get excited and hyped every time you buy, and they can watch it live on chain. So we want proof of reserves from centralized exchanges, right? Yeah. So, they probably should provide proof of reserves for their Bitcoin reserves if they're going to try to take advantage of that as a strategy for a publicly traded company. That is probably something they should be forced to disclose, in my opinion.
Yeah. It was definitely a viral question in that meeting anyway. Now, the other thing is just coming back to like the Bitcoin conference, I think it's still on at the moment, I think. And we've had, people from all around go to that. But it's like I just had a Wild SJ on the show, and she's at the Bitcoin conference. I'm not sure if it's still on. I think it might be still on today. But they have their conferences, and PulseChain, we've had our conferences, right? And they're definitely different. And so we've had, I think, Matty Allen's run quite a few. Recently, we had RH Max move into it. We've had 1 or 2 others that have tried to do conferences to different degrees of success. How do you find? We talked about how there's quite a big influencer community, and the community itself is highly engaged in PulseChain. How do you feel like the conferences have going? I'm sure you've seen some of them, and
of course, Bitcoin ones are a little more polished or have more people going, but that's because it's $110,000 a coin. PulseChain essentially since launch has remained, strong from a culture or community perspective, but it's been down and to the right. So, I think it's hard to get as much hype or get as much people to come out or new faces to come out because A, maybe they're not feeling that great with the price action, but B, they're not feeling very rich either. Maybe that's not the proper term, but if your bags aren't pumping, you don't have the dopamine, you don't have the financial ability to be like, hey, I'm going to sell a couple grand worth of PLS and buy a plane ticket and fly out there and meet everybody. So I think those are only going to get stronger, A, because cycle after cycle, they get more polished. I mean, the early Bitcoin conferences were very rough around the edges, and now you go and it's like being in track 5. You know what I mean? So I think PulseChain will get there. It's just going to take some time and take some green candles, and I think they're going to get bigger and bigger. But what's interesting is they're pretty large for what they are. If you look at PulseChain as a network, like, wow, there's been very few winners on this chain. It's been going on for 3 years, yet the hexagons and pulsicans still remain intertwined and are willing to do these conferences and are trying to spread the word. So that tells you all you need to know about that, because that shows character. And what do you think? How loud do you think they'll be? Or how active do you think they'll be with their wallets or buying projects, whatever, when the chain actually gets green? That's what we haven't seen yet. We've seen this great culture and great activity with red candles. With green candles, I think it only gets more exciting, and that's another play and another reason why we launched Surf Token on PulseChain and why we're talking more about PulseChain.
Honestly, I think
network.
I think, the timing of when you did it, I think was almost exactly when I felt a pivot in the whole PulseChain momentum. I
Yeah,
really
if
feel like it
you
was
look at the
the
charts
very the
currently,
beginning. Yeah.
currently it was almost what I consider could be a potentially a generational low as long as Ethereum as a whole kind of holds together.
Mm.
And that bodes well for tokens that launch down there too, because we were able to scoop up blue chips at discounted prices, and as they grow, our LPs will grow, which means that we'll be able to attract more volume from bots, attract more speculators and whales, because we didn't have to have as much capital to get these big LPs that will exist when the blue chips start to get running. So I
Yeah.
think it was great timing.
So we've been talking to quite a few teams, and a lot of teams are trying to get people on PulseChain to invest more for income and be more long-term investors as opposed to meme coin speculators, for example. How do you feel about that? Because obviously with your DAO, you're already in that camp to some degree.
Yep.
How do you feel about that whole theme?
I think that's very important, and that's why other cycles had their big alt seasons. People got in, they picked their communities, they had conviction in the speculation of the roadmap, they had conviction in their tokens, and really the biggest thing that helps tokens go up in price is you have to have holders. You got to have more buyers than sellers. So I am a big preacher of, hey guys, let's find the 5 or 10 plays that we have big conviction on. Let's get our positions. Let's utilize those tokens. In the case of Surf, if you hold Surf, you're automatically getting Surf reflections to your wallet for doing nothing just based on volume. So go evangelize Surf, go create buyers, go create more volume, and you're going to be rewarding yourself to that wallet. So I think that's very important. Find good projects at low valuations before the underlying network moves, and those are going to be the biggest mooners and safest plays in your portfolio across all chains. And that's what Surf's trying to be. That's what I see with PTGC and some of these other tokens that we've paired with. And I think they have a ton of upside potential due to the organic growth they're getting, the community of PulseChain, and of course the undervalued nature of the blue chips that they're paired with.
Yeah, I think that's a real alpha drop right there, because that is really key. And I think a lot of people, if they do that, will be very happy, towards the top of the bull market.
Have a little patience. And if you have conviction on the underlying network and you're in the right altcoins of the network, I think you're going to do very well. So find the altcoins that produce passive income for you, or have a utility that you want to speculate on, or have a cult-like community behind them if it's just a general meme coin. And then ride the wave. Look at the liquidity pools. If they're paired with the blue chips and they have any of the 3 components I just mentioned, they're probably going to do well this cycle.
So in terms of, we're just talking about the bigger market stuff like Bitcoin and other stuff. Do you have a view on how long the cycle might do, what the profile might look like, what the top of the Bitcoin might be for this particular cycle?
I know a lot of people now are switching to, they're showing the blow off euphoria top in like July. And I think that is way too early. I mean, historically, you would say Q4 of 2025 should be the top. But I've been saying for a while now, I think 244,000 Bitcoin by the end of 2025. I think we're going to surprise the upside. I also said that this could be the first time we ever break the 4-year halvening cycle and do it for the extension. Maybe we go to Q1 2026 or even Q2. And my thesis for that is we kind of have the black swan of the tariffs, and that's slowed down this market cycle. But also we have the potential extension, because this is where we have big institutions coming in play, governments coming in play, companies onboarding Bitcoin into their balance sheets and Ethereum into their balance sheets. And institutional money is very deep, and institutional money is very long term. Also, when we had the gold ETF come to the market, what happened? It went on a 10-year bull market. I don't know if Bitcoin can do 10 years of bull, but that is kind of the history repeating itself. It was, Bitcoin is digital gold. And when gold had its breakthrough into institution and into the ETF plays and into pension plans, it went on a 10-year bull market just based on every 2 weeks, people were auto allocating into that gold ETF. So we'll see if that plays out for Bitcoin. But that's why the people are saying July. I'm just like, I don't even know if we're going to have interest rate cuts by July. And the market is looking for 2 to 3 interest rate cuts this year. So history of the 4-year cycle says end of this year. You got interest rate cuts coming. You have institutions coming in a big way. And you have big innovations happening in the crypto and blockchain space. So I'm thinking end of 2025, worst case scenario, bleeding into 2026, best case scenario, $244,000 Bitcoin. And hopefully Ethereum plays a little catch up on the ratio here.
Yeah, I think that sounds very a very good view. I think that's very substantiated as well. So look forward to it. Look forward to that happening. Now, you talked about institutions. This cycle is different, right, from the 2021, right? Because we basically have the ETFs, as you say, more coming, and we also have more sovereign states, approving them through the regulators. And now we have obviously the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, we have the Ethereum stockpile, and of course we have not just sovereign states like the US leading the way with the digital strategy, but we also have US states. What's your view on how that's all going to play out? Because that's every player on the field, basically.
Yeah, and that's what I think people are really underestimating the upside of Bitcoin here and the longevity of this bull cycle. If the macro fundamentals play out, we don't have a black swan. Because like Texas, for example, just announced it. So if you have a federal level strategic reserve just for the United States, they own hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin, and they're looking to do net neutral budget ways to buy more Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But now if you have 50 states that are approving it and utilizing a percentage of their pension funds and a percentage of their tax revenues to buy, hold, and store Bitcoin as a reserve asset, that is a lot of money. And people are not understanding the potential there. We just saw Texas get passed. And this could even trickle down to the city level. There's going to be cities that will have Bitcoin strategic reserves. So now you're talking about auto investments in Bitcoin on the city level, the state level, the federal level, pension plan level, and 401k level. Because remember, we saw Coinbase just get added to S&P 500. And every 2 weeks, people have a 9 to 5 auto allocate into a 401k that goes and buys out S&P 500 index. And now Coinbase is part of that index.
I know,
Coinbase
it's crazy.
owns Bitcoin. Coinbase owns Ethereum. Coinbase is there. So I think people are just underestimating the amount of money from institutions that can come in slowly but surely. Because the other side of the argument is people are like, well, look, all the richest people in the world already have it. But they're still buying, or they're in the process of getting it passed through their court system to be able to buy. So it takes time when you're talking about these government entities. And if that's a consistent drip of buyers, that's where I look at the upside of Bitcoin and the upside of this entire market.
You're familiar with a lot of the Wall Street kind of mindset, the the investor sort of sector mindset. All the players are basically, as I call it, on the bench, but they can get on the field, whereas that wasn't possible in 2021.
Right.
How long do you think it's going to take for that slow progress, which I absolutely agree with you, and I think there'll be a big thing at the beginning and then slowly creeping through the sector, that they can change their attitudes, be educated and not ignorant about it. It is the CEOs, right, we're talking about, and fund managers and all sorts of type of people in that whole sector, change their point of view from that corporate culture, which you know very well actually holds all those corporates back, right?
Yeah.
And then also the risk profile. The risk is the kind of key thing. And can they change at the board level, at the operational level, and investment arms, and whatever they're doing? How do you see that playing out?
Well, I think it's already happening. Now we've seen the announcements of 21 Shares is about to launch. They want to have 44,000 Bitcoin. You saw that GameStop just bought 4,500 Bitcoin and has another billion potentially to go to Bitcoin, plus another 3 billion in cash. We saw Michael Saylor got on a board meeting with Microsoft in December. Well, guess what? They got another board meeting coming up in June. Do some of them start to vote the other way now that we're getting more regulatory clarity? So I think the chips are starting to fall. We saw like Pakistan and a bunch of these pro soccer and football clubs want to do Bitcoin strategic reserve. So I think it's quickly happening, and these buys have to happen at some point, and there's almost so much supply available. So I think even next quarter, as we get clarity from the SEC, like I said, on the Ethereum ETF, whether they can do the dividends, and we get clarity around some of the things that you talked about with the bills in June, July, and August, I think next quarter you're going to start to see more and more businesses continue to buy. So it's already happening. That's what people don't understand is there is big companies and big buys coming in to Bitcoin. That's why we are where we are, because retail isn't here. Retail is non-existent right now. And there's no hype for it. I'm not getting any text messages from my neighbors yet. So the retail is going to FOMO in at some point. And that's why the people that are saying the cycle will be over with the top in July, I don't see it that way. I don't think the macro fundamentals play out that way. I don't think the Fed plays out that way. There's no retail in here. And understand, when institutions get in, they get in to win. And they want to sell this to all their clients, and they want it to be residual because they get paid based on the AUM, and they'll get paid based on the revenue produced from staking Ethereum. Yeah. And they're going to keep you in that as a long-term portfolio position for decades. And that's why I think that crypto is here to stay. And that's why I think the bull market will surprise people to the upside here very shortly. And it could get pretty aggressive pretty fast. Like Richard Hart said, God candles can happen anytime on PulseChain. We're starting to see them happening with Bitcoin. Now we need to see the trickle-down effect to the altcoins.
And these are substantiated change, right? This is what people dreamed about in Bitcoin for 16 years, whatever it's been, and they always dreamed on it. And here we are. We're here right now, right?
You know, in the 2016, 17, 18, I was live, you know, talking about this on the dip, and it was just like a fantasy. Like I thought it could happen, but at that time I worked as for an institutional financial advisor as a performance analyst for you know private equity, hedge funds, precious metals. And that's how I found Bitcoin. And we were talking about like, wait a second, these hedge funds get in some pretty interesting investment products. I could see Bitcoin falling into this in the future. Now it's happening, and now people are like, okay, well, it happened. It's like, no, this is what we were begging for and hoping for 2 cycles ago. Now it's becoming a reality, and you think it's over? I don't think so. I think there's a lot of money inflows that people just who have been in the crypto space or worked a 9 to 5 and now they're financial free in crypto. They've never been on the institutional side. They can't comprehend the amount of money in the way that they do investment vehicles for the long term for pensions and retirement. And that's why I'm saying, guys, I could be wrong, but I predicted 100K Bitcoin by the end of 2024 when it was 20,000. And I could be wrong about the year with my prediction for Bitcoin, but I just think this could steamroll very fast, and the retail will be left behind if they don't get on board soon.
That's true. I mean, let's go fast forward just a little bit further here. We've still got a bit of time, and that is, we're talking about, you know, $250,000 essentially, potentially by the end of this year, extended bull market into the early part of 26 at least, right? Michael Saylor's talking about $13 million in 2045 as the base case. How do you feel about that?
That'll be wild. I like to go, you know, one step at a time, one cycle at a time. Like I said, I did a 2024 prediction of 100,000 and went to 104 or 105. Mm-hmm. Now I did my 2025 prediction when Bitcoin, you know, was down there at $70,000. So I like to go year by year, by cycle by cycle. 13 million seems like a massive number. But what I will say is the global market cap of gold is around $22 trillion. And this is an asset where it's ever expanding. We don't really know how much gold even exists or how much gold is being mined. So that's an estimate. Right now, Bitcoin's at like 2 trillion. So that means Bitcoin can do an 11x to even match the current market cap of gold. And you have to assume that on the way of Bitcoin chasing gold price goes up just due to fiat inflation. So although gold is 22 million now, 22 trillion, who's to say it doesn't go to 25 or 30 trillion? And now Bitcoin can do a 15x, a 20x from its current 100,000 market cap to catch that, which puts you now at what, $2 million, $3 million Bitcoin? I mean, that's pretty crazy to think about, but it's very possible. I know a lot of people, when Bitcoin ran from sub $1,000 in 2016 to $20,000 in 2020, or 2017, that kind of blew everybody's mind. Then we saw the run from 3,000 to 69,000. And, you know, these goalposts continue to move because the holder base continues to grow. The financial instruments continue to grow. And as long as there's no like quantum computing thing, you know, I think Bitcoin is kind of entrenched as the digital gold and won't really be replaced for a very long time.
Absolutely. I guess that leads us into probably our final question so that we can keep on our timeline. And that is, we've talked about Bitcoin and the wider market. So where do you think PulseChain could be at the end of this year, into 2030 and beyond? Where do you think we could go here?
See, that's a tough one. And when I evaluate PulseChain, you know, I'm more of a degenerate, so I'm evaluating altcoins. I was really big into PTGC, and I'm trying to map out what liquidity looks like, because liquidity is king. Trying to map out, does Richard Hart do stuff with the OA wallets? Now, if he deploys all the OA wallets, well, you're 100x, 1000x, you know. But let's just say he doesn't. A 10x from sacrifice price right now is something like a 20 or 25x in PulseChain. And although I think anything less than a 10x is a complete failure of sacrifice price, if this market cycle only goes for the rest of this year, I think doing a 25x for PLS from current levels would be a minor success, and people would probably be pretty happy. So I like to say my most conservative guess for PulseChain currently, outside of Richard Hart doing the magic carpet ride this cycle, would be 10x sacrifice, which would be a 25x from here, which means that the other blue chips probably do 26 to 27x from here. And, you know, if you find the right altcoins, of course, those gains can be much larger. So I think worst case scenario would be that 10x a sacrifice price. But I believe if Richard Hart does live streaming, deploys some OA wallets, you know, Ethereum gets to 5,000, 8,000, 10,000, that's a totally different thing. And we'll talk about that when we get there. And that would lead me to like 50x or 100x for PLS from current prices.
Hey, look, Nick, that was a outstanding summary, honestly, and I'm sure you've got people, I got to follow Nick now, that's for sure. So if you want to follow Nick, check out Crypto Paradise, and of course, also I've posted Nick's personal X account as well, which we'll go down to also, and check that out. So there we go. Follow that today. And man, Nick, you dropped a whole ton of alpha during the show. I really appreciate that, and I'm very excited about where Surf's going on PulseChain, and I know we're going to see you everywhere for sure. So yeah, I look forward to seeing you again, and if not here on your show, that'd be great.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Willing to collaborate with anybody, so you can come on Crypto Paradise or hop on a Spaces anytime. We'll get your opinion, or you can shill a project that you're involved with, and hopefully we see yourself or some of the faces from your community over in the Crypto Paradise DAO. 200,000 Surf or more can get you in there. I promise you're going to get value, not from only Surf itself, but from some of the other insights, the alpha, the gems, both on PulseChain and on other networks, as well as other investment opportunities. And we're here to, get our piece of the pie, and hopefully our community gets the rest of the pie. We can all win together this bull cycle and take advantage of the opportunity that crypto is presenting.
Fantastic, Nick. Appreciate it. And everybody out there, you know what to do. Surf the wave on PulseChain. That's how it goes.
Love it.
All right. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you next time. It's a bye from me.
See you guys later.
See you guys later. Bye for now.